When I asked for a mere $100 to help with my medicine costs, my son's wife declared, "Your only contribution to this family is expense." My son snickered, so I promptly shot back. In that case, the $7,000 monthly home loan payment ceases now. He nearly gagged. His wife stared at him bewildered. Home loan? You insisted the residence was completely paid off. Brittany's words pierced the festive holiday morning like a blade through my soul. Ethan laughed, a genuine, joyful sound at his wife's cruelty. So, with a sugary sweet smile, I uttered the 9 words that would unravel their entire reality. Then the $7,000 monthly home loan payment ceases now. Let me back up and tell you how I ended up in this wretched situation. My name is Carol Davidson, but everyone simply calls me Carol. I'm 72, a widow for 3 years now, and, according to my daughter-in-law, a financial millstone around the necks of my own family. The irony isn't lost on me. It started innocently enough. I'd been feeling unwell for weeks, aching joints, persistent weariness, the usual suspects when you're my age. My physician prescribed a new medication that would help, but it wasn't covered by my medical plan. The cost? A modest $100 a month. Not exactly a fortune, but on a fixed pension, every dollar is precious. So there I was, holiday morning, at Ethan and Brittany's stunning 4-bedroom residence in suburban Pasadena, California. The fir tree was a vision of splendor. Presents were heaped high, and the aroma of Brittany's renowned cinnamon buns filled the atmosphere. Leah and Michael were ripping through the wrapping paper with the boundless fervor only 12 and 10-year-olds can summon. I waited for the commotion to subside before approaching Ethan. "Darling," I said softly, "I hate to bring this up on Christmas, but I could really use some assistance with my new prescription costs. It's only $100 a month." The room fell silent. Brittany looked up from her smartphone, her impeccably groomed eyebrow arched in a manner I had learned to identify as disdain. "Are you being serious right now, Carol?" "It's from my arthritis medication," I tried to clarify, a blush of embarrassment creeping up my neck. "The insurance doesn't cover it." "Your only contribution to this family is expense." Brittany cut in, her voice as sharp as broken glass. "First, the emergency room visit last month, then the vehicle repair you needed a hand with, and now this. When does it stop?" I stood there stunned. In 3 years of living alone, I had asked for aid exactly 3 times, but apparently that was 3 times too many for my son's wife. My Ethan whom I had raised alone after his father passed away, for whom I had worked double shifts to put through university, looked at his wife and laughed. Not a tense, anxious giggle or an awkward chuckle, a genuine, joyful sound at his wife's cruelty. So, with a sugary sweet smile, I uttered the 9 words that would unravel their entire reality. "Then the $7,000 monthly home loan payment ceases now." Ethan nearly gagged on his coffee. Brittany's expression went from conceited to baffled to ashen in about 3 seconds. "Home loan?" Brittany turned to Ethan, her voice barely a whisper. "You informed me the house was paid for. You said you had a sizable inheritance from your mother when she passed away. Remember?" Ethan's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. That's when matters became truly captivating. You should have witnessed Brittany's expression when she grasped that her idyllic little existence was built on fabrications. Ethan appeared as if he were on the verge of a heart attack. And to be honest, I was starting to find a certain satisfaction in the moment. "Ethan?" Brittany's tone was dangerously subdued. "What home loan?" "He can explain," Ethan stammered, his hands trembling as he set down his coffee mug. "Mom, please don't." "Don't what?" I interjected. "Don't reveal the truth to your wife, that you've been deceiving her for 2 years about how you could manage this house?" Brittany rose slowly, her festive composure shattering like thin ice. 2 years? Ethan, we purchased this house 2 years ago. You said you had $80,000 for the down payment from your mother's inheritance." "He did have $80,000, I interjected helpfully. "It was from my late husband's life insurance policy, the money I gave him as a gift when you decided to move up from your apartment." Ethan shot me a warning look. Oh, now he was concerned about what I might reveal. But Ethan, Brittany continued, her voice rising in pitch, you told me your mother was passed away when you were a child. You said that's why Carol wasn't your real mother, just your stepmother. The room descended into stunned silence, broken only by the faint strains of Christmas tunes playing from Brittany's phone. Even the youngsters had ceased playing with their new gifts, sensing the palpable tension. I couldn't help myself. I laughed. A genuine, hearty laugh. Stepmother. I looked at Ethan with sincere amusement. Is that what you told her? That I'm your stepmother? Ethan's face was now a fascinating crimson shade. Mom, please. Oh, this is a gem. Brittany, my dear, I gave birth to this dishonest son of mine 32 years ago after 18 hours of labor. I have the stretch marks to prove it. Brittany slumped back into her seat as if her strings had been cut. You lied about your mother being deceased. I didn't exactly lie, Ethan said weakly. I just simplified things. Simplified. Brittany's voice was climbing octaves. You allowed me to believe your mother was dead for 8 years of our marriage? Not dead, Ethan said desperately, just not around very often.
This was getting more entertaining by the minute. I decided to assist the proceedings. Brittany, darling, did Ethan also simplify the part about me paying for Leah's piano lessons or Michael's baseball gear? Oh, and those lovely family trips to the Bahamas every summer? Brittany's mouth dropped open. The cruises? You said your company sponsored those as bonuses. My company? Ethan looked genuinely bewildered now. I'm a mid-level accountant. When have they ever given out bonuses like that? I watched Brittany's world disintegrate in real time. And if I'm being honest, it was quite gratifying after years of being treated like a nuisance. Ethan Michael Sullivan, Brittany declared, and I had to give her credit for the full name treatment. How much money has your mother been giving us? Ethan looked at me imploringly. I smiled back sweetly. Go on, son. Tell your dear old mother exactly how much your perfect little life has contributed. The silence stretched on like a funeral procession. Ethan was sweating through his holiday sweater. Brittany looked as if she had seen a ghost, and I was having the most enjoyable Christmas morning I'd had in years. Well, Brittany prompted, her voice frosty enough to freeze hell over. Ethan cleared his throat. It's not as bad as it sounds. How much, Ethan? I decided to help things move along. After all, we were wasting precious time, and I had plans to visit my friend Olivia later. Should I tell her, or would you prefer to maintain the dignity of confessing yourself? I asked pleasantly. Ethan shot me a look that could have murdered lesser women. Mom, this isn't helping. Oh, but I think it is helping. I think it's helping tremendously. Brittany deserves to know exactly what she's been living with. Brittany stood up and went to the window, gazing out at their perfectly manicured lawn, the lawn that I had also been funding through a monthly landscaping service, but I decided to save that revelation for later. The home loan is $7,000 a month? Ethan finally conceded. Mom's been covering it since we purchased the house. And, I prompted, the utilities and the landscaping? His shoulders slumped. The car payments on the luxury vehicle. My car? You said you got a promotion. I did get a promotion, just not a huge one. I was impressed. Ethan had managed to lie about virtually every aspect of their financial life. I'd raised him better than this, but apparently, somewhere along the way, he'd forgotten the principles I'd tried to instill. How much, Ethan? Whispered. In total, how much has she been paying? Ethan looked at me again. I examined my fingernails, freshly manicured at my own expense, of course. About $12,000 a month, he mumbled. $12,000? Brittany's voice cracked. Ethan, that's $144,000 a year. That's more than both our incomes combined. I was going to tell you when... When were you going to tell me? When your mother died and the money stopped coming? The children had quietly vanished upstairs, likely sensing that Christmas morning had taken a decidedly grown-up turn. Brittany, Ethan tried again, you have to comprehend. When we got married, you had certain expectations. The home, the cars, the lifestyle. I just wanted to give you what you wanted with your mother's money. With family money, Ethan corrected weakly. Brittany laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family money that you convinced me didn't exist. Family money from a mother you let me believe was your stepmother at best and deceased at worst. I stood up, smoothing my holiday dress. Well, this has been an illuminating experience, but I should probably head home. Wait, Brittany said, turning to me. Why now? Why are you telling me this now? I picked up my purse and vehicle keys. Because, dear Brittany, you just told me I contribute nothing but costs to this family, so I thought I'd show you exactly what those costs look like when they vanish. You can't just stop paying, Ethan said desperately. The home payment is due in a week. If we default, then I suggest you figure out how to make $7,000 in the next week. Maybe Brittany can pick up some extra shifts. Or you could ask your company for one of those bonuses you've been telling her about. I headed for the door, then paused and turned back. Oh, and Ethan, the next time you want to lie about your family, you might want to remember who raised you to be better than this.
The drive home was peaceful. I even stopped for a coffee and a gingerbread cookie at my favorite bakery. But when I got home, I found something that changed everything. On my front porch was a thick manila envelope with my name, Carol Davison, written in Brittany's careful handwriting. Inside were copies of financial documents that made my blood run cold. I had thought I knew everything about Ethan and Brittany's finances. After all, I had been funding their lifestyle for 2 years. But these documents revealed the level of deceit I hadn't imagined. There were credit card statements showing $67,000 in debt, a second mortgage on the house I had been paying for, one that Ethan had taken out 6 months ago without telling me, bank statements showing a checking account with only $847 in it, despite the fact that they both had decent jobs. And here was the most shocking part, a life insurance policy on me, a $500,000 policy that Ethan had taken out 18 months ago, listing himself as the sole beneficiary. I sat in my living room surrounded by evidence of my son's betrayal and felt something I had never experienced in my 72 years, genuine fear of my own child. My phone rang. "Did you get the envelope?" Brittany asked without preamble. "I did," I replied. "Where did you find all this?" "Ethan has been hiding documents in his office at work. I drove over there and demanded his supervisor let me into his desk. It turns out Ethan has been forging my signature on loan applications." I flipped through the papers again. "Brittany, some of these documents, they show you as co-signing for things. If you didn't sign them..." "I didn't sign any of them," she said, her voice shaking. "Not the second mortgage, not the credit cards, not the life insurance policy on you. Carol, I think Ethan has been planning something." A chill ran down my spine. "What kind of something?" "The life insurance policy was purchased right after you started getting those dizzy spells last year. Remember when you ended up in the emergency room?" I remembered. I had been having episodes of vertigo, and Ethan had been so attentive, insisting on driving me to all my doctor's appointments, staying with me during tests. "Brittany, are you suggesting..." "I'm not suggesting anything," she said. "I'm telling you to be careful, very careful." After hanging up, I sat in my recliner staring at the Christmas tree I had decorated alone, as I had for the past 3 years. The tree Ethan and Brittany had been too busy to help with, despite all the money I had been giving them. My phone buzzed with a text message from Ethan. "Mom, we need to talk. Coming over now." I looked at the life insurance policy again. $500,000, more than enough to pay off their debts and keep their lifestyle going for years.
Ethan had been my sweet boy once, the child who brought me dandelions and called them flowers, the teenager who worked part-time to help with household expenses when money was tight. When had he become this stranger who could forge documents and lie so effortlessly? 20 minutes later, I heard Ethan's key in my lock. The key I had given him for emergencies, which he apparently now considered my refusal to bankroll his lies. "Mom?" he called out. "In the living room," I replied, tucking the documents behind my chair cushion. Ethan walked in looking haggard. His Christmas sweater was wrinkled, his hair disheveled. He looked like a man whose world was falling apart. "Good. We need to fix this," he said without preamble. "Brittany is talking about lawyers, about divorce, about pressing charges for the forged signatures." "Maybe she should." Ethan's face paled. "Mom, you don't understand. If this goes public, I'll lose my job, my license, everything." "You should have thought of that before you started committing fraud." "It's not fraud, it's family. You're my mother. Family helps family." I stood up, all 5'4" of me, and looked my son in the eye. "Family doesn't take out life insurance policies on each other, Ethan." His face went completely white. "You know about that?" "I know about all of it now. The second mortgage, the credit cards, the forged signatures, all of it." Ethan sank into the couch like a deflated balloon. "I can explain." "No, Ethan, you can't explain this away. Not this time." That's when I told him what I had decided to do next, and his reaction was not what I expected. Instead of panic or shame, his face hardened into something I didn't recognize. "You can't," he said flatly. "I won't let you." "Let me?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Ethan, you seem to have forgotten something. I'm your mother, not your employee. And I'm your only family. When you're old and sick and need someone to take care of you, Brittany and I are all you have." The threat was clear, and it hit exactly where he intended. But Ethan had underestimated his mother. "Actually," I said, settling back into my chair, "that's where you're wrong." I pulled out my phone and showed him a contact I had been meaning to call for weeks. Elder care attorney. Olivia had recommended. "I've been doing some research, Ethan, about elder abuse, about financial exploitation, about what happens to sons who forge their mother's signatures on legal documents." His confident expression faltered. "You wouldn't."
I also called my bank this morning, I continued. It's amazing what you discover when you ask the right questions. Like how someone's been using my debit card information to make online purchases. Purchases I didn't authorize. "That was just for household stuff, things for the kids," he said defensively. "Identity theft, Ethan. That's what it's called when you use someone else's financial information without permission." Ethan stood up abruptly, his hands clenched into fists. "You're making a mistake, Mom. A big mistake." "The only mistake I made was trusting you," I replied. "Brittany put you up to this, didn't she? She's always been jealous of our relationship. She can't stand that you love me more than her." I stared at my son, this stranger wearing Ethan's face, and felt something break inside me that could never be repaired. "Ethan, I need you to leave now." "This is my inheritance you're playing with," he said, his voice rising. "Dad's life insurance money, the house equity, it's all supposed to come to me anyway." "Your inheritance?" I stood up slowly. "Ethan, let me tell you about your inheritance." I walked to my desk and pulled out a folder I'd hoped never to use. Inside were documents Ethan had never seen, papers from lawyers he didn't know I'd consulted. "Your father left me everything, Ethan. The house, the investments, the life insurance, everything. I never legally had to share any of it with you.
Ethan's face went ashen. That's not. Dad would never. Your father watched you from the time you were 16 years old. He saw how you treated money, how you expected everything to be handed to you. He was worried about what would happen if you inherited everything at once. I opened the folder and showed Ethan the will he'd never been allowed to see. He left it all to me, with instructions to provide for you gradually if I deemed you responsible enough to handle it. Ethan grabbed for the papers, but I pulled them back. These are copies. The originals are in a safe deposit box you don't have access to. You've been lying to me my whole life. I've been protecting you your whole life, but apparently I should have protected myself instead. Ethan's phone buzzed with a text. He looked at it and his face went even paler. Brittany? I asked. He nodded wordlessly. What did she say? He showed me the phone. The message was short and devastating. Locks changed. Don't come home. Followed by a second message, divorce papers filed. For a moment, just a moment, Ethan looked like the lost little boy he'd been when his father died. But then his face hardened again. This is all your fault, Mom. If I hadn't opened my mouth this morning, you'd still be lying to your wife and stealing from your mother. He headed for the door, then turned back with a look that chilled me to the bone. You think you've won something here, Mom? You've just destroyed your only family. When you're old and sick and dying alone in some nursing home, remember this conversation. After he left, I sat in my living room for a long time, looking at the Christmas presents under my tree. Presents for grandchildren I might never see again. Gifts for a son who'd become a stranger. But then my phone rang, and everything changed again.
Mrs. Davison, this is Detective Morrison with the Los Angeles State Police Financial Crimes Unit. We need to talk. My hand tightened on the phone. About what? About your son, Ethan, and what appears to be a sophisticated financial fraud scheme involving elderly family members. You're not the only victim, Mrs. Davidson. 20 minutes later, Detective Morrison and his partner, Detective Walsh, were sitting in my living room looking at the documents Brittany had discovered. How long has this been going on? Detective Morrison asked. 2 years that I know of, I replied, but apparently longer than that. Detective Walsh looked up from the life insurance policy. Mrs. Davidson, we've been investigating your son for 3 months. It started when another elderly woman came forward with similar complaints. Another woman? Mrs. Eleanor Hayes. He was her financial advisor before he moved to accounting. She discovered he'd been forging her signature on investment documents, transferring money from her retirement accounts to accounts he controlled. My blood ran cold. How much? Over $200,000. She's 81 years old, lives alone, and trusted Ethan to help manage her finances after her husband died. I felt sick. Are there others? 3 more that we know of. All elderly widows, all alone, all trusting Ethan to help them with financial matters. Detective Morrison leaned forward. Mrs. Davison, what your son did to you wasn't just family dysfunction. It was part of a pattern of elder financial abuse. He's been targeting vulnerable seniors for years. I thought about all the times Ethan had offered to help with my banking, my investments, my bill paying, how he'd gradually taken over more and more of my financial life under the guise of being helpful. The life insurance policy, Detective Walsh said, that's what made us take a closer look at your situation. Taking out large life insurance policies on elderly family members without their knowledge is often a precursor to more serious crimes. More serious crimes? Mrs. Davison, We've seen cases where financial abuse escalates to physical harm when the perpetrator feels trapped or desperate. I remembered Ethan's face when he'd left, the cold calculation in his eyes. Had I been in danger all this time without knowing it? What happens now? I asked. We need your full cooperation. We need you to document every financial transaction, every forged signature, every unauthorized access to your accounts. This case is bigger than just you and Ethan. Detective Morrison handed me a business card. Mrs. Davison, I want you to consider something. Your son has been stealing from elderly people for years. By coming forward, you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting other families from going through what you've experienced. After the detectives left, I sat alone with my thoughts. Ethan wasn't just a son who'd lost his way, he was a predator who'd been systematically stealing from vulnerable people. My phone buzzed with a text from Brittany. Carol, I'm so sorry for everything. We need to talk. But before I could respond, there was a knock at my door. Through the peephole, I could see Ethan standing on my porch, his face twisted with rage. He knew about the police visit, and he wasn't happy. That's when I realized my Christmas morning confrontation had just been the beginning. I opened the door with the chain still attached. Ethan's eyes were wild, desperate, and for the first time in my life, I was genuinely afraid of my own son.
Let me in, Mom. We need to talk. I think we've talked enough for one day, Ethan. The cops were here, weren't they? His voice was eerily calm. I saw their car leaving. I didn't answer, but my silence was confirmation enough. Mom, you have no idea what you've done. No idea what you've started. I started nothing, Ethan. You did this all by yourself. He pressed his face closer to the crack in the door. Those detectives, they don't know the whole story. They don't know about the gambling debts. My blood turned to ice. What gambling debts? The people I owe money to, Mom, they're not the patient type. If I can't pay them back, he let the threat hang in the air. How much, Ethan? $80,000, due next week. I closed my eyes. Even after everything, some part of me wanted to help him, but that part was getting smaller by the minute. That's not my problem anymore. Ethan's mask slipped completely. It will be your problem when they come looking for their money. These aren't bill collectors, Mom. These are dangerous people. Then you'd better figure out how to handle dangerous people because you're not getting another penny from me. Fine. Ethan stepped back from the door. But remember, you chose this. Whatever happens next, you chose it. After he left, I called Detective Morrison immediately. Mrs. Davison, what's wrong? Ethan was just here. He mentioned gambling debts, $80,000. There was a pause. That explains a lot. Mrs. Davison, I need you to pack a bag tonight. We're going to put you somewhere safe until we can arrest your son. You really think he'd hurt me? Mrs. Davison, desperate people do desperate things, and your son just became very desperate. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a modest hotel room across town watching the local news with Detective Walsh. The story was breaking. Local man arrested in elder fraud scheme. Ethan's mugshot filled the screen. The reporter was describing how police had arrested him at an underground poker game trying to bet money he didn't have. He didn't even make it 12 hours, Detective Walsh said with grim satisfaction. Desperation makes people stupid. But the story wasn't over. The reporter continued. Police say this is just the beginning of a larger investigation into organized elder fraud in the tri-state area. Detective Walsh looked at me. Mrs. Davison, there's something else you need to know. Ethan wasn't working alone.
The next morning brought news that would change everything I thought I knew about my son's crimes. Brittany? I stared at Detective Morrison in disbelief. You're saying Brittany was involved? Not initially,
he clarified, but we found evidence that she discovered Ethan's activities months ago, and instead of reporting them, she helped him expand the operation. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. But she's the one who brought me the documents. She's the one who exposed him. Think about it, Mrs. Davidson. How did she know exactly where to find all those papers? How did she know which documents to look for? The pieces started falling into place. Brittany's sudden interest in my finances over the past year, her questions about my other assets, her insistence that I should simplify my banking by letting Ethan handle everything. She was planning to turn on him all along, Detective Walsh said. We think so. Our investigation shows Brittany was positioning herself to be the victim when Ethan inevitably got caught. She'd keep the house, claim she was deceived, and walk away clean. Detective Morrison pulled out a tablet and showed me screenshots of text messages between Ethan and Brittany. These are from 3 months ago. Brittany texting Ethan, "We need an exit strategy. Your mother's getting suspicious." And Ethan's response, "Don't worry, I can handle my mother." I read through more messages, each one more damning than the last. Brittany suggesting which elderly clients would be easiest targets. Ethan reporting back on how much money he'd managed to steal from each victim. Mrs. Davidson, Detective Walsh said gently, Brittany filed for divorce yesterday, but not because she was outraged by Ethan's crimes. She filed because she knew we were closing in and she wanted to protect her assets. How long have you been watching them? I asked. 6 months. Mrs. Hayes wasn't the first victim to come forward. She was just the first one brave enough to file charges. Detective Morrison pulled forward. Mrs. Davidson, we need you to help us with something. Brittany doesn't know we're on to her yet. She thinks she successfully played the role of the innocent wife. What do you need me to do? We need you to meet with her. Wear a wire, get her to confess to her role in the scheme. I thought about Brittany's perfect smile, her carefully manicured appearance, the way she'd made me feel like an unwanted burden in my own son's life, all while planning to rob me blind. When do we start? The meeting was set for the next afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. Brittany had texted me, claiming she wanted to make things right and discuss how we could move forward as a family. As I walked into the coffee shop with the recording device taped to my chest, I wondered how I'd missed the signs that both my son and daughter-in-law were predators. Brittany was already there, looking perfectly put together, despite supposedly having her world turned upside down. She hugged me like we were old friends instead of co-conspirators in her husband's downfall. Carol, I'm so glad you agreed to meet with me, she said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. Of course, dear. Family is family, right? Brittany's smile faltered for just a moment. Exactly. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about our situation. With Ethan in jail, I'm going to need your help more than ever. The mortgage, the bills, the children's expenses. I can't do this alone. I sipped my coffee, marveling at her audacity. I see. And what exactly are you proposing? I think we should make our arrangement official, legal. You could sign over a power of attorney to me, and I'll make sure all your finances are properly managed. There it was. Brittany wasn't done stealing from me. She was just getting started. That's very thoughtful of you, Brittany, but I have to ask, why now? Why are you suddenly so concerned about my finances? Brittany's eyes hardened for just a moment before the sweet smile returned. Because, Carol, Ethan kept you in the dark about so many things. The real state of our finances, the debts, the obligations. You need someone you can trust to help you navigate all of this. Someone I can trust, I repeated. Like you? Exactly like me.
That's when I told her something that made her face go completely white. Brittany, I know about the offshore accounts. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. Her coffee cup rattled against the saucer as she set it down with shaking hands. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered. The Cayman Island account, the one with $247,000 in it. Money from Mrs. Hayes, Mrs. Patterson, and the others. I watched her carefully. Did you really think the police wouldn't find it? Brittany's perfectly composed mask cracked completely. How did you know about it? Brittany, honey, when you're under federal investigation for financial crimes, they look at everything. Every account, every transaction, every lie you've told. She looked around the coffee shop frantically, as if searching for an escape route. Carol, you don't understand. He forced me. Forced you to help steal from elderly people. Forced you to open secret accounts. Forced you to lie to me for 2 years? You don't know what it was like living with him. The pressure, the constant demands for money. He said if I didn't help him, he'd leave me with nothing. So you decided to steal from his victims instead of leaving him. It wasn't supposed to go this far, Brittany said, tears starting to flow. It was just supposed to be temporary, just until Ethan could get a better job, make more money legitimately. I leaned back in my chair, studying this woman who'd shared holiday dinners with me, who'd let me babysit her children, who'd called me mom for 8 years. Brittany, what was the plan for me? She looked confused. What do you mean? The life insurance policy, the gradual takeover of my finances. What was the end game? Brittany went very still. There was no end game. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. The police already know about the nursing home applications you filled out in my name, the ones where you claimed I was incompetent and needed full-time care. Brittany's face went ashen. That was Ethan's idea. Was it Ethan's idea to list yourself as my emergency contact, to research facilities that would give you financial control as my responsible party? The coffee shop suddenly felt very quiet, despite the normal afternoon crowd. Brittany stared at me like I was a stranger.
How long have you been working with the police? Since yesterday. They've been watching you and Ethan for months. Every phone call, every text message, every financial transaction. They know everything. Brittany stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. This is entrapment. You can't use anything I said. I want a lawyer. You can have all the lawyers you want, dear, but it won't change what you've already done. Brittany grabbed her purse and started toward the door, then turned back with a look of pure hatred. You sanctimonious old witch! You think you're so innocent. You enabled all of this. Every time you wrote a check, every time you paid a bill, you made it possible. You're right, I said calmly. I did enable it by trusting my family, by believing that people I loved wouldn't steal from me. That was my mistake. Your mistake was thinking you mattered. You were never family. You were just a bank account with legs. She stormed out, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and the recording device that had captured every word. Detective Morrison appeared at my table within minutes. We got it all, Mrs. Davison. Every confession, every admission of guilt. What happens now? Now we arrest Brittany and close down this operation for good. But as we left the coffee shop, Detective Morrison's phone rang. His face went grim as he listened. Mrs. Davison, we have a problem. Ethan just made bail. How is that possible? Someone posted his bond. Someone with very deep pockets and very bad intentions. That's when I learned the truth about who was really behind my son's crimes. The money came from Vincent Castellano, Detective Morrison said as we sat in his unmarked car. Ever heard of him? I shook my head, but something cold crawled up my spine.
He runs the largest illegal gambling operation in the tri-state area, also loan sharking, money laundering, and apparently elder fraud. You're saying Ethan was working for organized crime? We think Ethan started small, just stealing from you and a few clients. But when he got in over his head with gambling debts, Castellano offered him a deal. Work off the debt by recruiting elderly victims for a larger operation. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk, Carol." Detective Morrison looked at the message. "He's not supposed to contact you. That's a violation of his bail conditions." Another text arrived, this one with a photo attached. Brittany bound and gagged in what looked like a warehouse somewhere. Detective Morrison was already on his radio. "All units, we have a hostage situation. Suspect is Ethan Sullivan, armed and dangerous." "I have to go," I said, reaching for the car door. "Mrs. Davison, you cannot go to that meeting. This is exactly what he wants. Brittany might be terrible, but she doesn't deserve to die because of Ethan's mistakes. It's a trap. He's desperate, cornered, and willing to do anything to get out of this." My phone rang. It was Ethan's number. "Answer it, but keep him talking. We're tracking the call." "Ethan?" "Mom, I'm sorry it came to this. I really am. But you've left me no choice. Let Brittany go. She has children, Ethan. Your children." "My children who I'll never see again because you destroyed my life?" "I didn't destroy anything. You did this to yourself." "Maybe, but you could have helped me fix it. Instead, you chose to side with strangers over your own son."
In the background, I could hear Brittany crying, pleading for her life. "What do you want, Ethan?" "I want my life back. I want you to call Detective Morrison and tell him you made a mistake, that you lied about everything." "I can't do that." "Then Brittany dies and it's on your conscience." The line went dead. Detective Morrison was coordinating with multiple units, barking orders into his radio. "Mrs. Davison, we're going to get Brittany back safely, but I need you to stay here." "No." I unbuckled my seatbelt. "Ethan will never trust that I'm alone if he sees police cars, but he might trust his mother." "Mrs. Davison." "Detective, I'm 72 years old. I've been manipulated, stolen from, and threatened by my own son. I've lost my family, my savings, and my sense of safety. But I'll be damned if I let him become a murderer." 20 minutes later, I walked into the parking garage alone, or at least appearing to be alone. Detective Morrison and his team were positioned around the building, but Ethan would see only me. Ethan emerged from behind a concrete pillar, looking haggard and desperate. He was holding a gun. "Where's Brittany?" I asked. "Somewhere safe for now." "Ethan, put the gun down. You're scaring me." "Good. Maybe you'll finally take me seriously." I stepped closer, my hands visible and empty. "What do you want from me, son?" "I want you to fix this. Call the police and tell them you lied. Tell them I never stole anything, never forged any documents." "I can't do that, Ethan. Too many people know the truth." "Then Brittany dies." "No, she doesn't." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. "Because Brittany was never kidnapped. That photo you sent, it was taken from a movie she was in during college theater. The police verified it an hour ago." Ethan's face went blank with confusion. "You're losing your mind, Ethan. Desperation has made you sloppy. There is no warehouse. There is no kidnapping. There's just you, alone, with a gun, threatening your mother in a parking garage." That's when Ethan realized he'd been played, and his reaction changed everything. Ethan lowered the gun, his face cycling through confusion, rage, and finally broken defeat. "It was never real, was it?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "The photo, the threats, I made it all up in my head." "Ethan, when did you last sleep? Really sleep?" He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. I don't, I, I can't remember." I stepped closer, my maternal instincts overriding my fear. "Son, you need help, real help." I ruined everything, didn't I? Ethan dropped the gun, and it clattered harmlessly across the concrete. My marriage, my children, my relationship with you, everything. Detective Morrison and his team moved in quickly, securing the weapon and placing Ethan in handcuffs. But Ethan didn't resist. He looked like a man who'd finally reached the end of a very long, very destructive road. "Mrs. Davidson," Detective Morrison said, "are you all right?" I looked at my son, my broken, criminal son, and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. "I'm fine. We're all fine now." 6 months later, I sat in a courthouse listening to a judge sentence Ethan to 7 years in federal prison for elder fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Brittany received 4 years for her role as an accomplice. The other victims, Mrs. Hayes, Mrs. Patterson, and 3 others, sat with me in the gallery. We'd become an unlikely support group, bound together by shared betrayal and the long road to recovery. When the judge asked if I had a victim impact statement to make, I stood up slowly. "Your Honor, Ethan Sullivan is my son. I raised him, loved him, and trusted him with my financial security. His crimes didn't just steal my money, they stole my sense of family, my sense of safety, and my ability to trust." I paused, looking at his back as he sat at the defendant's table. "Your Honor, justice isn't just about punishment, it's about protection, protecting other families from experiencing what we've been through. I support the sentence you're considering, not out of vengeance, but out of hope that Ethan will get the help he needs and that other potential victims will be spared." After court, I walked out into the spring sunshine feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed with a text from Leah, my granddaughter. "Grandma, can I come visit you this weekend? I miss you." Brittany had lost custody to her parents, who'd reached out to me immediately. "Carol," her grandfather had said, "the children need their grandmother, their real grandmother." I texted back, "Of course, sweetheart, I'll make your favorite cookies." That evening, I sat on my front porch, my paid-off, mortgage-free front porch, reading a letter from Dorothy Hayes. She'd written to tell me about the elder fraud prevention program we were starting together, funded in part by the money recovered from Ethan and Brittany's accounts. "We're going to save other families," she had written. "We're going to make sure our suffering counts for something." As the sun set, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me here. A year ago, I thought family meant accepting whatever treatment I received, paying whatever costs were demanded, and being grateful for whatever scraps of affection came my way. Now I understood that real family, the family I was building with Leah and Michael, with Dorothy and the other survivors, with the community of people who'd supported me through this ordeal, was based on respect, honesty, and genuine care. Ethan had taken my money, my trust, and my peace of mind. But he also given me something unexpected, the strength to demand better for myself, and the wisdom to recognize the difference between family and people who simply share your blood. My phone rang. Leah again. "Grandma, I love you." "I love you too, sweetheart, more than you'll ever know." And for the first time in years, I meant it without reservation or fear,